Hello there, and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett, along with Kent Myers. We're here every week, meeting interesting people, dealing with topical issues, and are grateful that you've decided to join us here this morning.
Yeah, this is a show, Mick, that's particularly pleasurable for me because our guest today is my son, Scott Graddy, from Harrison, Arkansas, a young man of whom I'm very proud. He's going to talk about a subject he knows well, and I think our viewers need to know about. It's called youth sports, and what is the current state of youth sports today?
Yeah. It's changed a lot since you and I were a kid.
It has. It has. Well, when I was a kid, it consisted solely of YMCA baseball.
Yeah, well,
that was it.
It wasn't much different when I was playing.
There wasn't any football, basketball, any volleyball, anything else. But now we have all of that. And Scott is able to approach this from a personal experience, not only as a coach of girls teams in basketball, but also as an official, officiating a number of different sports and being escorted out of town a number of times, I'm sure.
This is going to be a fun show.
Yes.
We'll get to it when we return. You're watching The Verdict.
One of the reasons why I moved to Rockaway is because it's such a diverse culture and different ethnicities. And my camera has opened some doors to really meet people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to meet without it. I'm Beth Perkins, I'm a professional photographer, and I'm Chickasaw. It came in as like a mini tidal wave. Everything sustainable had just disappeared in one swoop, and I just underestimated this power, and I realized really how little we are in this whole scheme of things and how quickly things can go bad. My community is still rebuilding, and for them to just show up out of the blue and just start clearing out my house was, I'm not one that likes to ask for help. So for someone to come and do that for me it was really touching and humbling. I've thought about the history of the Chickasaws and what they went through as far as relocating and losing their homes and having to rebuild and to thrive in the end after all of that is just a true testament to the Chickasaw strength. And I try and draw from that and remember that that's a part of who I am.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofenation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
What a special guest today when you get to introduce your son as a guest on the Verdict. Scott Graddy is from Harrison, Arkansas. He's in the insurance and investment planning advice business over there, but spends an awful lot of time as a youth coach, as an official officiating in sporting events for high school and younger kids. Scott did his undergraduate work at Oklahoma State University. He has been a high school official over in Arkansas for 14 years. He's been a basketball coach for 8 years. He's coached at intermediate levels, at highest levels over there of youth sports. And he currently is coaching 2 AAU girls basketball teams. But he's going to talk to us today about what goes on in the world of youth sports from a number of different perspectives. Welcome, glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, most of our audience touches the world of youth sports, either as a participant when they're younger, or as a parent, or as a grandparent. And so there are always sections of our life where youth sports comes into play, and I think one theme comes back to me. The games always seem so important right then. Most people of sound mind and body a month later say, remember how excited or how upset we were or how, about that game. When it was over, people tend to move on with their lives and realize there's other things. But do you find that as a common theme, that the games seem maybe a little overly important at the time they're being contested?
And as an official, we try to remember that the game to the second grader is just as important as Kevin Durant's game with the Thunder to them and to their parents. It's more important. And so we try to remember that as an official, and we try to do that as a coach as well.
Well, you've got to just continually ask yourself for patience. I mean, coaching kids, first of all, takes patience, and then dealing with parents during a game, because in a basketball game, I mean, you're right next to the fans.
Right.
In a football field, you're at least 50 yards removed, and you probably can't hear most of what's said.
Well,
in
it's
basketball, you
harder
probably do hear everything
In
that's said.
football, it's harder to be hit by a bottle being thrown.
Yeah, I think as an official, if you can officiate basketball, you can probably officiate any sport. The fans are right there on top of you. You're right there interacting with the players on every play, every possession, and it's one reason I really like basketball is you're more part of the game.
Yeah, so the responsibilities of a good Little League official is first of all to know the rules,
Right.
and secondly, but there's a lot more to it than that. So take us through what's left. Obviously, you got to know the rules, but
Right.
then dealing with coaches and dealing with parents and dealing with players who may not know how to shoot a free throw. I mean,
Right.
the first time you call a foul on them, they may not even know what's occurred.
Right.
Take us through some of the additional methods that you've used to kind of communicate beyond just the rules of the game.
Yeah, and as an official, you have to be able to communicate very well with the coaches. You have to be able to communicate with the players. If they ask you a question, you can't ignore it. You've got to talk to them, work them through things. One thing that has helped me is I've been a fan, I've been a player, I've been a coach, and I've been an official. So,
And you've been a tournament director.
and I've been a tournament director. Having all of those different perspectives makes me a better official, makes me a better coach, makes me a better fan when I'm on the ball floor.
Let me ask you, as an official in a basketball game, you have a lot of authority. You
Yep.
can call fouls, you can call technical fouls. I guess you can eject players. I guess you can eject coaches
Yeah.
and fans if need be. What is the technical trigger for you? When something happens, you know immediately you're going to call a technical foul. What is that?
Well, there's, if it's the thing that would trigger an ejection, anytime that there's physical, they get physical, there's going to be punches thrown. Obviously, we're going to eject somebody then.
Yeah.
As a fan, we try to ignore them. The good officials will let that go off, just let that slide off your shoulder. But there's times when you can't. I've turned around and had a fan in my face on the floor, jump the railing and come out there. And so that happens. And then you have to have an ejection. It's the Hoosiers moment, when you have the drunk dad come into the gym and embarrass their kid. When you have the fan that's using obscenities from the top row, then we have to have an objection. But we usually don't have that. It's very far and few between. I think I've had 2 in 14 years.
Yeah. What is the differences amongst the obvious between coaching a boys team and coaching a girls team?
I was never a fan of girls sports until I had daughters. And I started coaching girls and have absolutely fell in love with girls basketball. Would rather watch it on TV, would rather attend that than the men's game. Girls, if they respect you, they will outwork boys any day of the week. They'll run through a wall for you. They're just great. They're great athletes, and they're just as good athletes as any of the boys' teams are.
And what about the personal side?
The personal side is
talking and teaching. Is it different, but teaching boys or teaching girls?
It is a little different. Boys. I've had to adapt to girls. They are definitely a little bit different, for sure.
How are they different?
They cry quicker.
Yeah, they do. Some girls you can yell at. You have coaches that
Yeah.
like to yell. You can't do that with girls. Girls will break down for the most part. Some of them will. Boys will get over that and move on to the next thing, you know.
Well, I've seen you in action. I'll throw a little personal note in here as a coach, and I've never seen you yell. I've never seen you, even in the most difficult circumstances, appear to overreact or appear to be furious or very happy. You seem to have a very stable, positive approach on the sidelines. How important is doing that?
I've been coached by coaches that really like to berate you, and then I've also let myself go to that point before, and it doesn't work. And I know, especially with girls' sports, it doesn't work. If you can get the kid over there and talk to them about what you expect of them, they will do that for you.
How much of being a basketball referee is discretionary? Because, you know, there's a rule book, but, you know, a lot of it seems like, well, that could have been a foul or it could not have been a foul. When you're officiating, how much of it seems like it's your interpretation as opposed to being a black and white situation?
There's a lot of judgment in basketball. Even more so, I think, in football. In basketball, there's a, you know, in football you could get the holding penalty on any call, any possession. In basketball, the block charge it's a big judgment call, and we work really hard watching plays in the off season, watching videos, trying to get everybody on the same page, but it's never going to be exact.
Yeah.
And this is the block charge, the hand check, the carry, the travel. That's stuff that we really watch, and there's a lot of judgment involved in those.
I see officials trying to get in position to see. Talk about the art of knowing where to be so you can determine whether or not there's been a violation.
Yeah, if you can't, a huge part of refereeing basketball is being in the right position. You want to get off. You don't want to be right up on top of the players. You want to be off the floor a little bit so you can see through the play, actually see the play develop. If you're too close, you'll be blinded to the play, or you don't want to get stuck behind a big 6'5" post player and not be able to see what's going on across the lane from you. So,
and another thing, how do you not get caught up in the score of the game? I mean, if it's a 20-point blowout or it's a 1-point game, really your job doesn't necessarily change. But
Exactly.
the culture of the arena has changed.
Definitely.
The coaching's changed. The fans are on edge. The players are nervous. But the official is supposed to be judging it. Do you find yourself trying to remind yourself that you need to be not caught up in the moment?
we know when we're in a 40-point game, and we definitely do. And sometimes it's easy to get a little lax with the officiating to let the game finish. We also know when we're in a 1-point game. The crowd lets you know. But other than that, we really don't know what the score is. I'll go home and have somebody ask me who won the game, and I do not remember. It's we have tried to officiate as impartial as we can, and we unless it's a 1-point game or a 40-point game, we really do not know what the score is.
Scott Graddy is our guest. We're talking about youth sports and the coaching side and the officiating side, and we'll have more after this.
I didn't know that there were abandoned oil well sites on the property, but it turns out there were 3 of them. We saw those commercials, but never did we ever dream that it was going to happen out here. OARB came out and they cleaned up these old sites for us. And when you look at what they've done, it's absolutely fantastic. This whole plan out here is for the grandkids and just generations to come. The process is simple. Pick up the telephone. It's worth a phone call. Trust me, it's worth it.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Scott Graddy is our guest today on The Verdict, and we're talking about youth sports, basketball, football primarily, and the different roles that people play.
Well, as Mick and I were talking about earlier, when we were growing up, youth sports was hardly existed, only usually in baseball, nothing else. And now it's burgeoning in all sorts of different sports. Scott, in your experience, what are the benefits to be gained by having your child or allowing your child to play youth sports?
We could spend the whole show talking about the benefits of youth sports.
Well, we only have half of it left,
Right.
so let's live it.
It's like any other endeavor that you would go after, playing the cello or learning a foreign language. The younger you pick the basketball up, the younger you start the foreign language, the more second nature it's going to become to you. And we have had great feedback from middle school, junior high, high school coaches about the players that we're sending them 10-year-old fifth graders that have played 75 to 100 basketball games, and they've told us in the past we spend the first year just teaching these kids how to dribble, teaching them how to pass. They say we get seventh graders that still don't know how to dribble and how to pass. Well, we're sending them kids that have played 100 games that understand what a man and his own defense is. They understand what a press, what an offense is, and they can dribble and they can pass. And so it's really helping the school coaches fine-tune their teams and take them to a different level. We'll take those same kids as they're going into 9th and 10th grade, and now they have 200 or 300, 400 games under their belts. Those coaches will have a 10th grader out there that they can count on in the clutch that'll be playing against maybe a senior from the other team that has 200 less games in their career. And so they've seen more, done more, and they're not scared of the big moment. They're not scared to take the big shot. So we've had great feedback from the coaches. I think that other biggest benefit that you get from team sports is the lessons all the kids learn that they don't really understand that they're learning. They're getting lessons on winning and losing with class and with grace, respecting coaches, respecting officials, respecting their teammates and opponents. They learn about commitment, commitment to their teammates, commitment to something that's bigger than them. They learn about communication. They have to be able to talk with their coach, have to be able to talk with their teammates. They learn about adapting. They're going to have a teammate go down, or an offense is going to change the offense they're running against them, and they have to adapt to that. So there's a lot of things like that that can't be learned in a classroom that you can learn through youth sports, and I think those are some of the bigger benefits.
One of the big changes of the last 10 or 20 years is tournament play.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just for the kids. They become economic development ventures for some communities, that build these, multi-court basketball or facilities, or in soccer. And then they'll try to create economic development by holding tournaments and, week after week after week. From your side, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And give us some of the mechanics and the size of some of these events.
It's a great thing for us because it gives us access to basketball that fits our schedule anytime. And 20 years ago, the only thing we really had was AAU basketball and Little League baseball. And the AAU basketball, you had to go to a big city to find it. Mm-hmm. A lot of the rural kids, smaller town kids, had no access to that. They played Little League baseball in the summer, and that was it. So they're popping up everywhere. AAU is still a big force in the business. Mm-hmm. Mid-America Youth Basketball out of Wichita, Kansas. They host tournaments all over the Midwest and do a great job of bringing any level of team that you have. You can feel comfortable going to their tournaments and finding competitive play. Just in the past couple of weeks, they've had a tournament here in the girls' nationals here in Oklahoma City with over 400 teams.
Now, 400 teams. How many players on a team typically?
Probably average 8 to 10 kids on a
Okay,
team.
so
Second grade all the way through
You're talking
12th
about
grade.
400 players. How many additional people come per player? I mean, I assume these kids aren't coming by themselves for the most part.
Yeah, especially the younger ages bring parents, bring grandparents, and so with 400 plus teams in the metro area,
You're probably talking 1,000 people.
It's
or
a
more.
boon. A lot more than that.
Yeah.
A lot more than that.
And
yeah.
that's hotel rooms, that's restaurants. It's all the other additional things that people do when they're traveling during the summer.
30 to 40 people per team, probably.
Yeah, so I mean, it's significant tourism.
Yeah.
So much more. I hear kids though specializing. In other words, when I was a kid, you played the sport when it was in season, and then you played a different sport, and then nowadays kids really can play one sport year round. If it's basketball or soccer or even football, they'll find ways to hold camps and things. Is that a good thing or a bad thing in your opinion? And do you see it changing?
You hear a lot about kids being injured and from playing year-round sports and things like that, and I think a lot of the problem is specialization. You have some coaches and a lot of parents that want their kid to specialize at a young age. They've got their 10-year-old that's just going to be a pitcher. He's never going to bat. He's never going to play the field. He's never going to pick up a basketball, and he's going to wear his arm out by the time he's 18. And we encourage our kids to play as many sports as they can. There's nothing better for a basketball player than playing volleyball for their leaping and hand-eye coordination, or playing softball for hand-eye coordination, or track for speed and agility. My daughter in particular plays 4 sports, and we love that. We demand they take a couple of months off every year. All of our kids on our teams from basketball, but these kids are athletes, so when they take a couple months off, they're playing another sport. But they're using a different muscle group, and it's fun to watch. Even the very best basketball athlete, that first week of volleyball practice, they're sore because they've worked a different muscle group. And I think that's important to keeping their body, their mind, their spirit, and everything healthy, so you don't have injuries or burnout on the sport.
Scott, if I were bringing to you a young child of mine to put on your team, what would you tell me as the coach of that team? What should I expect as a parent? How would you talk to me if that occurred?
The funny, we have parents call us quite often asking, we'd like our kid to play with you guys. We'll invite them to a practice. We're always looking for new kids, but when we invite them, we'll talk with them on the phone. We invite them to practice. We're more interviewing the parents than we are the kids. It's a big part of youth sports is how good your parents are. If you have a parent acting a fool on the sideline, or yelling at the players, or yelling at the coach and talking bad about the coach in front of the kid, it just doesn't work. And so the first thing we say to the parent, and then we repeat it quite often as coaches, is we bring them in, and we don't talk about what we do on the floor. We say, we have such a great group of parents. I don't know what experience you've had with other teams, but we don't have any of that stuff going on the sidelines. And we repeat that to our parents. Some teams actually have parents sign contracts. They'll say, this is how you're going to act, this is how much money you're going to be expected to put out, and things like that. We don't do the contract. We bring in good parents, bring in good kids, and we don't have trouble. But then we do sit down with the parent and we talk about how many tournaments we know we're going to play. We expect to play over the summer, or the younger kids through the winter. If we talk about the financial thing, if they can't afford it, we still do fundraising and things like that to make it work for them. So everybody's welcome, but we interview the parents a lot more than we do the kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are various levels of competition, are there not, particularly in youth basketball? You've got the AAU tournaments that are probably higher level of competition, and then you have intermediate tournaments and perhaps beginners tournaments. Do you have teams in all of those types of activities?
Yeah, we'll play in all of them depending on what fits our schedule. Yeah. We'll play at least 2 or 3 of what's become popular now are called showcase tournaments, and those are NCAA certified events that have coaches are able to scout at those. And we usually don't do those until the kids are at least 8th or 9th graders. But yeah, we'll attend some of those, and as younger ages, we'll play the intermediate tournaments.
Scott, thanks. It's been great to have you on
You
the
bet.
show. I
Thank
think you've renewed our faith and confidence in youth sports, and a lot of the the scary things we hear. I think you remind us that that's a small minority, and there's a lot of really good people helping our kids.
Yep.
Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Kent and I'll be right back.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick and Kent here, and we're so glad you joined us today. And I hope our guests enjoyed being here, and I hope our audience enjoyed it too. We have a website we'd love for you to visit. It's called theverdict.tv. Tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future show, and we'll see you then.